in, and you can see there's a little bit of color blocking already going on in my work where I painted the lighter parts of the cloud a lighter blue and the darker parts of the cloud a darker blue in these distinct shapes. That's called color blocking. The shading I'm going to do in the clothes will also be in a color blocking style, whereas the shading I'm going to do in the face and hair may be more of a traditional soft shading going from dark to light to build dimension. So for this tutorial, we'll be focusing on the clothes and the color blocking style. For this project, it's important that you think about the style you're developing through these techniques of color blocking, and then also a more traditional style for the human face. And you can use these different styles in different ways in different areas according to your creative vision. So I have arranged my layers as you can see down here. We have Finn, and then we have the background. And then at the very top, I have the leaves outlined in the leaves because they were in front of everything and I did them later, so they needed to go at the top. It's important that all your layers are named, and you will be checked on that eventually, so just be aware. I'm going to come to Finn, and I'm going to start with the shirt, and I'm going to turn the shirt down for a second. You can see I've painted through it a little bit. And I'm going to turn this original image on again. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to just be able to see where the light fell originally in this work, because I might be able to use some of that shading as a guide. All right, so I'm going to leave that on. And above the shirt, let me turn this back on for a second. I turned it down. I'm going to turn it back up just so I can grab that color so I know where we are in my color palette, and then I'll turn it back down to where I can see. And then I'm going to make a clipping mask above, so new layer, bottom clip, create clipping mask. And this is going to be called Shirt Shadows, because with the color blocking, you're adding in the shadows. All right, so come over to my brush. With color blocking, you use a hard round pressure size. I'm going to turn the flow up, the opacity up, and the smoothing on. And I want to come down to a darker shade of this green. And I'm just going to start to kind of fill in where I think these shadows should be. How thick, how thin. Might add some extra ones in some areas, thicken them up. The shirt was different than what it had a pattern on it, so I'm ignoring the pattern and really looking for the shadows. And I'm going to turn this up and see what it's starting to look like. Refining, go back this. Refining those shadows. Now the wave is behind in front of this, so I have to be careful when I get into this area. I'm going to zoom in here and see what is happening here. It looks like there's some mess. Look at this. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to clean up the areas of the shirt that I didn't quite fill in. Okay. Just double checking. And this is going to happen, double check your work. You can see I'm going to have to fix it in the hands too. Little things that we notice as we're going. Then I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to grab this, fill this in. And I'm really kind of thinking about the curve. I'm adding in some extra shadows. Again, I'm going to turn this down. It also turns down the clipping mask naturally. This is the shadow of the shirt here. And it looks like the arm is going to cast like a pretty big shadow right in here. And then, all right, so I'm going to keep going, but I want to see, you know, how's this looking? Are my decisions for my color blocking making sense? You know, I'm trying to capture the folds of the fabric with each shadow. So I'm really trying to follow what I see, but enhance it with my shading. Ooh. Oh no, I'm on the shirt, you guys. Have to make sure you're on the right layer. All right, so I'm going to quickly come back. I'm actually glad that in this demo it's not going perfectly. I think it's good to see that like when we're working, we all lose attention to the small details, right? Everyone makes mistakes. It doesn't really matter if you've been doing this a long time. If this is your first time, things are going to happen. You're going to have to go back and fix them. So I'm trying to find that flow of my line. All right, so now I'm going to pull this up. Let me see. I had a little mistake there, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to fill that in. Ooh. I'm going to fill this in, and then I'm going to try to fade my shading so it's not quite so harsh. Okay, so I'm just going to fill that in. All right, and then also if you notice, like this shading that I did on the shirt already may need to get darker based on my clothing decisions. Looking at this, I feel like I have too many skinny lines, so I'm going to come back. I'm going to try to thicken up some shadows. Darker, thicker. So I'm just going to darken this whole thing here. And then bring that shading around this way. The light is really coming from above in this picture, so I can put more shading along the sides. Again, I'm going to have to clean up some of this. I'm going to put a shadow under the sleeve to emphasize it. All right, so I have some more cleaning up to do, but I want to show you. So now I'm going to come over to opacity. I'm going to start to turn that down so that it blends in. I could also come over here and I could go to color burn or multiply or darken. And I can play with these here. It kind of changes the color, but be aware of how it changes it. That's the normal there, and I'm going to go to multiply. I like it darker. And then I can even turn that up just a little. And obviously, I have a lot more to do. I would finish the shirt. I'm going to keep thinking about my light source hitting his face. This is going to be more in shadow, but you can see I'm going to put some shadow under the hands in here. I'm going to finish the shading around here, keeping the center kind of light and the shading heavier on the sides. And then his pants are going to be like pretty dark in shadow because his face and body will be casting shading onto his pants. So I'm going to keep working on this, and then you'll see the final shirt when it is done. Again, this is a color blocking technique, which is really great for clothing especially, and more kind of flat, hard objects. I have finished my shading with the color blocking technique. I've turned my white background back on, and you can see here I have my color blocking as a clipping mask above my shirt. Okay. If we zoom in, you can see that I turned this down to opacity of 22%, and I changed it to multiply, which just darkens it to kind of blend that color in. If I take it off multiply and go to normal, I think it's too late because I saved it as that. So I'm just, well, you can see it change there. All right. So now you can see the end result. I was really thinking of like keeping the lighting towards the center. As the light is coming down and hitting his face, it would also hit the center of his body here and be darker on the sides. But also in thinking about where the light is, I was refining the shapes of light. I started by following the shirt, but then quickly started kind of adjusting it to what my intuition told me looked good. So you want to kind of work with the reality of the photo, but then also work with your creativity and your intuition as you're shading, respond to what you're doing. Obviously, if I have a lot of little shapes and lines here, I want to have it more open and larger shapes over here. So thinking about just how your shading also creates balance in the piece is really important too.